Trill. Well, we finally got here. I ordered this for just such an occasion. Some of you have put this together. But Trill and I, way back years and years ago, upwards of 2 years ago, we said we wanted to start this podcast with the express purpose of pointing out that Nikola Jokic is a fraud. He is dog shit. I think it's terrible that he won 3 MVPs. That's bad to me. I think he's bad. And this is finally our moment. Now that the Denver Nuggets are eliminated, they dropped 2 games at home. And then I didn't watch these games, but I'm assuming they must have rolled over like dogs in the Minnesota Timberwolves series.
Of course.
So that is it. Now we can finally blow the cover off this and say this whole time we hated Nikola Jokic. We didn't like him playing. I think what pissed me off most was how nobody ever talked about him on podcasts.
Yeah.
That made him just feel so much like less legitimate to me, and that really made us mad. So
yeah.
There we go. We hate the Denver Nuggets, a team that traditionally creates a lot of animus and people feel a lot of feelings towards that team one way or another. And we personally hate Nikola Jokic.
I would say personally it began with me when that disgusting state legalized marijuana before any other state. Just a grotesque, immoral thing that a state could do, and did it before every other state too. Just really disgusting. And then of course in that tradition drafted Nikola Jokic shortly after, ruining the NBA, ruining basketball for us, the people that matter the most, the podcasters. Americans. Yes, that too. Yeah.
It also ruined our American pride. That's really why I don't like Nikola Jokic, because I like America so much.
Yes.
Yeah. Personally. Exactly. Thank God Lauren Boebert is setting that state straight. So
yeah, I mean it is it's disgusting to see, but luckily their season's over. The Nuggets dynasty that never began is now done, and a lot of people after the last episode wanted me to apologize for the things that I said. And here's what I'll say. I always follow my heart. And deep in my heart, I don't know if it was the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef. I don't know if it was what happened in game 2 where Jokic probably had his worst playoff game of all time. But it unlocked something in me. And deep in my heart, I'm a hater. Deep down, I am a hater. And I apologize for nothing. Because I followed my heart. And in my heart, I am a hater. And I led with my emotions in the last episode that we recorded last week. And I regret nothing. So anyway, now that that's out of the way, so is he in the top 12 of all time now?
I was thinking, I think he's by Durant now. For me at least. I that might be a little quick for some people, but like the third MVP that does a lot of heavy lifting. I'm just sorry, that is a very fucking short list of guys that are also in the top 15. So
okay, so to recap, last night was game 5. I think it was the best game. I said it like this. There have been a lot of amazing playoff games over the last few years. I thought it was the best playoff game that I've seen from a player in a high-stakes game against a real team. I know Tatum had 50 in that elimination game last year. I did forget about that. But in terms of needed every single bucket from this player, needed every single thing from this player to win this game, it was probably the best game since game 4, Steph against Boston in 2022 finals. A Pantheon game for a Pantheon player. And yes, deep in my heart, I still have hatred for him, but he's owned me. It was the best game that I've seen. Yeah. It was, like I said, it was basically a perfect game.
Yeah. No, it was so much so that like he made everyone turn on Anthony Edwards for just saying, wow, he had a good game.
well, Anthony Edwards who has been, I would say, through 3 games of this series, was clearly the best player in the series. Even in game 4, he was incredible. He just didn't have any help in that game.
Yeah.
Has his worst game of the series, comes out, and he gives up the ghost. He's like, what can you do? Like, what can you do when you have the defensive player of the year?
Yeah.
You basically have the perfect team on paper to slow down Jokic. And through 2 games, that proved to be the case. It felt like mentally he was all over the place. He turned the ball over a ton. He wasn't locked in on defense.
Even some of their game 3 and game 4 wins where there was a lot of fucking like jump shooting and like tip your cap like shit going on, like nothing was easy. Like, and that's not to discredit Denver. And if anything, that's to kind of glaze Denver a little bit because like they fucking earned every goddamn bucket. Every shot was tough and they fucking hit them all. Like, which is why
that's kind of been the story of the last 2 games was like Denver. What has happened in the last 2 games? Game 3 and game 2 were a little bit of an outlier in this series to me because the Wolves got crazy hot. And so from what I heard, the Nuggets had a game plan prepared for game 2 leading up to it. Like they prepared for 2 days and then Rudy didn't play and it like threw off all their shit in game 2. So the Wolves come out playing an entirely different defense. They blow them out. The Nuggets blow them out in game 3. The last 2 games is exactly how I expected this series to go when we talked about the series before the playoffs. Close games where Jokic just takes over at the end of games. Everyone else just does just enough to get them to the finish line. And last night was, I mean, what did he finish with? 40 points. Honestly, even the shots that he missed in the fourth quarter, it felt like he was fouled on almost every possession when he missed the shots. So in addition to that, obviously making plays all over the place, playing the best defense that he's played maybe I've ever seen in a playoff game against Anthony Edwards, who had been tearing him up until this point in the series and had no turnovers on the game and it was incredible. I mean, it was basically completely in control. And I know you just said Kevin Durant, he's better than Kevin Durant. Like it's just, I mean, I'm sure people are going to get slandered for saying what they've been saying on social media the last 24 hours. I saw Raheem Palmer from The Ringer say he's better than KD and he's better than, let's just say someone who is in the GOAT conversation that doesn't deserve to be in the GOAT conversation at all. And I don't disagree. Like, I think that in terms of offensive peaks, in terms of if we're ranking the best playoff performers, the best, because the thing is, the great players always figure out a way to solve teams. And he's solved the best defense since the 2008 Celtics over the course of this series. Like, this is kind of unheard of. Like, I mean, this is basically shit that we have not really seen. I mean, at a minimum since Steph, probably since LeBron. And I know we joked about this on the last episode. I mainly was pissed at all the fucking people that have been victory lapping this shit for years. The HP basketballs, the Andy Baileys of the world, who were crying that he was getting criticism when he played like shit. And he has now bounced back, beat the allegations, and all time is certainly moving up the ranks. I mean, he's on a trajectory to finish top 10, no question. Right now, I think it's like, if he wins a title this year, 2 titles, 2 finals MVPs, 3 MVPs in 4 years, the best player in the league for 4 straight years, 3 straight years at least. If you want to count Giannis that last year, sure, then maybe 3 straight years. It's a short list. I mean, it's like a very short list.
One more title where I might be blaspheming here, but I think we're talking Curry Duncan. Like, with one more title. I know that's fewer than those guys won, but like those guys didn't win 3 MVPs. Now, you could probably argue Steph maybe should have won 3 MVPs or could have won 3 MVPs, but I don't know. Like, I think he's in that tier. He's in that tier of guys that I think are, kind kind of the bottom 12, the Bill Simmons pantheon, like the that he has where he's like the bottom
the pyramid.
six. Yeah. So you're in the bottom half of the pantheon. So yeah, I mean Jokic, credit to him. And I think we said last week, our point was that part of being a great player is everyone is going to shit on you when you no-show a fucking series. And then he didn't no-show the series. So there you go. Great player.
I mean, at one point, it looked like it was the first time that he had looked human in the playoffs. Because when he first got to the playoffs, he was already entering his prime. Most guys have their early years. LeBron, a lot of these guys, Jordan, have their bumps and bruises. I mean, Jordan was incredible early in his career in the playoffs, don't get me wrong. So was LeBron. But they usually get there at a younger age. Jokic, I think the first year they made the playoffs, he was 24. And then the last few years, I think he's 28 now. He really hasn't had, especially since he made that MVP leap in the bubble, he hasn't had that kind of stinker game or stinker series in the same way that a lot of guys do earlier in their careers. And this was the first time that he looked human. And over the last 3 games, he's proven that he isn't human. So yeah. I think you got to give him all the credit in the world for bouncing back here and taking over this series in a way that we kind of anticipated him doing from the jump. But this is why they play 7 games. And this was also why we were like, when we were talking about it last week, we were like tempering all of our expectations. We were like the Wolves looked like they mentally just dominated them. They looked like they made them want to quit.
Right. And
then we go into game 3 and everything flips on its head. And it's exactly what you predicted. You're like, I don't want to get ahead of myself here because you can't count a champion out until they're out.
they're the Chiefs, man. Like this is very, it was very like Chiefs at halftime, like Harrison Butker is missing a kick and then giving a speech about how women should only wear dresses or something like that. I don't really know what he was doing, but yeah, I don't know. I'm sticking to it. I feel pretty good about the Wolves winning game 6. Honestly, I still don't think the series is over, by the way. I think people are pouring dirt on the Wolves now too much the other way.
The last 2 games have been really close. I mean, the thing is that we expect the Nuggets to outperform them down the stretch of these games.
Yeah.
But they've been close enough that I'm going to give the Wolves a chance to come back and at least give us a game 7 in Denver.
Yeah. I think Denver still wins this. It's looking like Denver in 7, to me, is probably, with the information I have now, what I would predict. But I'm going to stick to my Wolves in 7 prediction and hope they can bounce back. They've been great, though. I mean, hey, tough to credit. I know everyone's kind of like fucking clowning Rudy. I mean, I don't know what you really do with that, man. Like, I would love to clown Rudy, but like,
sure.
I watched a lot of that game this morning. Like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
I thought someone did bring up a good point, which was, did we clown Gary Payton for not being able to stop Michael Jordan in the finals? Like, no. Right. Like, if LeBron James has a great game against Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs, we don't say it's, it's because Kawhi sucks. But I do just want to point this out. The thing that I've been saying about Rudy is that it has never, ever, ever been his defense. His defense is always pretty elite in the playoffs. Like, I mean, we know what he brings to the table as a rim protector, as a help guy, as someone that's just going to shut down the paint. The issue with Rudy, for me, has always been and will always be his offense. His offense is just very limited. And even last night was one of his better offensive games. He didn't miss a shot. He had like 3 or 4 assists in that game. He was rebounding well. Like, it's not like he, of course, is always, doing the screen and dive and whatever. The thing for me is that Rudy is, and I said this on an episode before, he's the best player ever who cannot do anything with the ball. He's just in, like, even guys that are like high level role players, it's like him and Rodman, really. Like, even guys that are high level role players that become elite players because of that. Like, I think Draymond would be like the peak of like the not superstar scorer that has superstar impact because he's just like the greatest role player. Draymond could always do something with the ball. It was part of the reason that made the Warriors work, was because Draymond was a brilliant passer and he could attack advantages and he always kept the ball moving and he was always thinking 2 steps ahead. Gobert is not able to do any, and Rob Flom pointed this out on Twitter, he can't do any of the short roll stuff as a big man. He's pretty much just a screen and lob guy. He can clean up offensive glass stuff, sure, but when you're getting into these situations, teams aren't worried about him at all. Teams were treating him the same exact way that they used to treat him in Utah when he was setting those screens and diving. They're just going to let him do whatever he's going to do and hope that his teammates don't really pick up on that throughout the course of a game. And when they don't have Mike Conley, a lot of the times that happens. And I think that Rudy is still a very, very good player, but this is kind of always been the pitfall of having Rudy. You're going to have an elite defense.
Yeah.
And then if you run into a superstar player, a few years ago it was Steph Curry, now it's Jokic, they're going to just be the better player in the series. And it's not the fault of Rudy Gobert or his team. It's just that those guys are fucking all-time players. And Rudy is, at the end of the day, the player who can impact the game the most without ever basically touching the ball. But at the end of the day, the best ones are the ones who can do shit with the ball as well.
Yeah. We also got a second disaster playoffs big has hit the Minnesota Timberwolves. That also happened in this series. So Karl-Anthony Towns.
Nas Reed has been real terrible recently too. I hate to say it. The last few games, Nas has fell off a cliff. Honestly, the thing that was really the difference in this series early on was that Minnesota's role players were playing amazingly. And I would include Karl-Anthony Towns in that, even if he's their second scorer.
Yeah.
But they're kind of, guys that are lower in the pecking order were playing amazing, and their depth was what the advantage was in this series. The second that Nas Reed and Cat stopped shooting the shit out of the ball, the second that, Conley was out for this game, and the second that Kyle Anderson proved to be unplayable, a lot of their advantages went away. And the Nuggets started getting these random hot shooting games from Justin Holiday and Reggie Jackson, and Jamal Murray started to look more like himself. And Aaron Gordon, in my opinion, has been maybe the 3rd or 4th best player in this series behind Jokic and Anthony Edwards. And, most of that is because it's Jokic and he can just kind of do Jokic things and set him up easily. He's scoring on a ton of cuts. He's making life easy for him. You can put him in the dunker. The Wolves are overreacting and sending so much help over to Jokic as a scorer that he's able to just hit Gordon in the dunker over and over, and it's just free layups and dunks the whole game. But another part of it is that there were legit plays where they were running the offense through Aaron Gordon. They were letting him bring the ball up, and everyone was so worried about Jokic and Murray off the ball that it just opened everything up for Gordon. And Gordon isn't the most talented scorer in the world, but if you give him a one-on-one mismatch, he's going to take advantage, and it made it so that Minnesota needs to make some adjustments here. So we'll see what Minnesota can do. I'm definitely not counting out, at a minimum, I might be counting out the Wolves a little bit in this series. I'm not counting out Anthony Edwards because he has been in this series, even with his stinker last night, he looked completely indecisive, was missing a ton of shots. Even with that, he's been incredible in this series, and all it takes is one kind of dominant performance from him to get them back in this thing. But yeah, I mean, do you think this is the NBA Finals? Be honest. Do you think this is the NBA Finals right now, or do you think that? Okay, you still think that it's?
I think Boston. I think Boston has a chance. I think part of the reason Boston looks so shitty right now is because Boston, for as high level of a team as they are, they do play the variance game. Yeah. So part of the reason why they look shitty sometimes
on both ends.
Seriously, yes. Like part of the reason they look shitty against teams they're better than is because they shoot a lot of threes and do some of this stuff and lean into the variance. And I think the Nuggets in the playoffs, was how the playoffs go. I think that they're a better team just simply by having Jokic, but I think the Celtics have variance. Like they have the Miami Heat gear. So I think they've got a puncher's chance. Like I think the Celtics could lose by 40 and have a really fucking embarrassing game. I also think they could make 23s and just, that would be that. I mean, I think the Nuggets should probably be favored. I think if that series happened, I would probably pick Nuggets in 7. But I think the Celtics have a really good chance, provided Porzingis comes back, because that's another reason why they look a little underwhelming against Cleveland, is because you've got
Horford's been playing big minutes and he doesn't look like he's capable of that right now.
He's 38 years old. And Derek White's Linsanity run came to a halt.
Yeah, a little bit.
But
then that's the thing about Boston, and that's the thing about a lot of these good teams in the playoffs, is that when one Linsanity run ends, Drew Holiday makes 40% of his threes, and I consider that a Linsanity run in the playoffs.
He's having a Drew Holiday Linsanity run. He's up to 53 true shooting this playoffs. That is Linsanity for playoff Drew Holiday. That is
And look, on the Patreon episode, we gave Tatum a lot of shit. I thought that was one of his best playoff games I've ever seen. Just overall,
I thought he's been great the last two games.
The passing in that game was some of the best passing I've ever seen from him. As a scorer, he was back in control of the game. The defense and the rebounding was really good in that game, as well as it kind of always is. So got to give him credit on that for bouncing back. But I do just want to point out, so I don't think anyone's going to slow down game to game. Sure, you might be able to slow down Jokic and the Nuggets. Over the course of a series, we figured out if he can figure out this defense, he can figure out any defense. Boston might be the only team that can keep up in terms of scoring because of the shooting variant shit you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where you might just need to get hot 3 or 4 games in a series to win the series. And Minnesota early in the series were making all of their open threes. And then last night, when you lean into this variance game, when you lean into this 3-point shot game, it does leave you susceptible to, like you said, looking kind of shittier at times. It does leave you susceptible to, not looking quite as dominant as some of these other teams can. Whereas Denver, and this is something that I was hoping that the Sixers would be able to figure out in the playoffs, they're kind of variance proof. They might have games where they just have to tough it out and win them, like the last 2 games for Denver, but they're not going to have quite as many games where they're completely reliant on jump shots falling. And the teams that are left other than them, a lot of them are just incredibly reliant on the right shooters getting shots, creating those open looks for them, whether it's the Pacers, the Celtics, the Thunder, those kind of teams. And the Jokic factor is the thing that probably is scaring the shit out of all Celtics fans right now, because you're, like you said, he's leading the NBA or the playoffs in touches now by a wide margin. It's like 115 touches a game, I think. And almost every time he touches it outside of those 2 games early in the series, it has been it's been pretty incredible to see what kind of shot quality he can get for them on any given possession. So I just want to say, I definitely think Boston has a puncher's chance in that series. I also still don't think this Denver team is I think they were better last year. I know the path was easier. I know that Jokic is probably even better than he was last year, but we've seen Jamal Murray be human. He didn't look human last run. We've seen this bench kind of look like shit at times throughout the course of this. They don't have a guy that's quite as reliable as a Bruce Brown coming off the bench. And I think if Boston can get Porzingis back, they definitely have a chance in that series. Having said that, after the last 2 games, or 3 games, it's hard for me to not just say, based on everything we know about the history of the NBA, and especially recent history, that a guy that's basically at his peak right now, that is performing as well as Jokic does, those teams generally win the NBA Finals. Even if it's, kind of tough it out in 6 or 7 games, at the end of the day, that's generally what happens here. And, if Porzingis can get healthy, the Celtics might have that, they have a better team overall, but the Jokic factor makes it just kind of Definitely the most competitive series that they've ever faced.
Everyone's just fucking sick of the Celtics. I think it's kind of.
I was sick of the Nuggets. I'm going to be honest. I was sick of the Nuggets. I'm sick of the Celtics, but that's been going on for 5 years. But
yeah, I think there's I think that there is a lot of hand wringing about a Celtics team, and I know Donovan Mitchell's about to miss 2 games. I know Jimmy Butler was out. I know Jared Allen has been out. There's a lot of hand wringing for a team that is about to gentleman sweep their first 2 rounds and wins like 6 of those games by 20 points. And I'm calling myself out there. You know what I'm saying? I get that it like looks ugly, but like, you know, it is a little it is a little bit weird. It is like a little bit weird, and I hate this Celtics team. Look, I would be honest. Like I want my anti Drew Holiday agenda to thrive. Like so you know, it is weird. It is weird.
So how would you feel? So the Knicks and the Pacers still haven't finished their series, but it's looking like the Knicks are probably going to take that one, even though they have 4 guys they're missing right now. And one of those guys is actually good, OG Anunoby. Yeah. How do you feel about that series? Let's just say OG comes back in like game 3. Mm-hmm. Do you feel as confident as you felt in these first 2 rounds, or do you think that the Knicks can kind of push the Celtics in a way that the Cavs and the beat up Heat have not been able to?
Well, I was too disrespectful of Cleveland. I made the classic mistake of letting regular season games that I know are fake and fraudulent impact how I feel about a team. So I want to admit right now, Cleveland was a better team than I thought they were. I
honestly thought that they were. I thought that the Magic presented interesting problems for them, but I still think that they're a better team than they were last year when they got their shit rocked in the first round.
I think if they had Dean Wade for most of this series, I think it would have made a pretty big difference.
He's good, man.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they acquitted themselves pretty well without Jared Allen. Like Mobley seems to have beaten the allegations a little bit. Garland not as much, but Garland played all right with Mitchell out. You know,
Garland played great last game. I was glad to see him at least have one good game in this series because I thought he was one of the worst players in the playoffs before that game.
Yeah. So I think Cleveland, is a better team than I thought, and I think that this series could have gone 6 or 7 if Donovan Mitchell was like healthy for the whole time. I'm dropping kayfabe on the Donovan Mitchell thing for the time being. So if he was healthy, I think that would have, I think this series could have gone 6 or 7. I don't really see much of a way Cleveland win. I mean, maybe they'll do it. The Celtics suck at home. So, maybe those of you listening know that the Celtics have lost game 5 already. So this is funny to you, but I don't give them much of a chance tonight.
No Donovan Mitchell. Last game, I felt like last game was the best punch that the Cavs could throw.
Yeah.
Like that, when I watched that game, I was like, this is a team that's going all out to try to save their season without their 2 best players.
Yeah.
And they gave a worthy, at a certain point, they ran out of gas. And I honestly think that they're kind of in a similar situation to the Knicks where they're just running out of talent.
Yeah.
And the Knicks have been able to, keep at least 4 of their starters healthy. And that has helped them, or at least 4 starting level players healthy, I should say. Yeah. And that has helped them hang in their series. Yeah. The thing with the Cavs is they had Max Strus running pick and roll last game. Like, it's just, they just don't have enough. Like I think that they would need some sort of miracle performance from one of their best players or an insane shooting game to win tonight. And I
just think Mobley and Garland aren't consistent enough offensively to supplement your one punch in Donovan Mitchell. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Neither of those guys are Jaylen Brown or Jamal Murray or these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll have their moments, but neither of them can keep things afloat. I honestly think the Cavs were, I got to admit that I was wrong. I think that they kind of acquitted, even though they're going to lose in 5, it's because Mitchell got hurt. And I think that they acquitted themselves pretty well.
I think this series would have went 6 if they were healthier, which is about what I expected. And I also think that their team is, like I said, I think they're better than last year. I think that they're not going to have it easy. They're not going to be able. We'll talk about the Donovan Mitchell trade stuff later,
Yeah.
but this is not going to convince Donovan Mitchell to change his mind. I don't think. I
No.
think even if he were healthy, they were losing to the Celtics, and I think that this was probably their best chance to make a run with Donovan Mitchell, and I think that that's probably done just based on all the reporting we've heard. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Before we do, though, we have to talk about your favorite team in the NBA. Let's move on from this boring playoff shit. Let's move on from fucking all the actual basketball game, all-time stuff.
This is the vegetables. Yeah. You know, this is like, I always hate when Zach Lowe says, this is why we do this, to talk about the playoff game. Wrong! I am here to talk about the slop. This is bullshit. I don't care. I don't care about basketball, baby. I'm talking about the trade machine. I'm talking about tankathon.com. I'm talking about all that shit. Yes. So let's go. Caw. My Atlanta Hawks. They're back. They're
on top of the world right now. I mean, it's like, I would say number one, the Caw Atlanta Hawks, number one pick in the worst draft since 2013.
Correct.
Number two, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets after last night.
Yeah, I mean, they better win this year. That's all I'm going to say about the Nuggets. You better win this year.
It's coming.
You think the Celtics had a Mickey Mouse run this year? Wait till the Hawks win 78 games next year.
The greatest dynasty we've ever seen is about to begin.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson was hurt. People forget that.
By the way, in the episode that we did the other day where we streamed and we reacted to the draft lottery results, that's on the Uniball YouTube if you want to check it out. Also on the Patreon if you want to see the full hour and a half. Mm-hmm. But I am always shocked when people don't understand irony or sarcasm at all. We're literally laughing.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dredd was like literally like audibly laughing, like in the clip. And
Chuck's laughing. We're both trying to keep ourselves from laughing.
Yeah,
and we're joking about the Hawks or the Spurs having a better future. And by the way, I do just want to point this out. I totally forgot about this element of it. We've been talking about how the Spurs have the Hawks picks the next few years.
Yeah.
We also just saw that the Spurs got the Raptors pick, which will be the 8th pick in this draft.
Yeah.
You know what trade I forgot about?
What's that?
The DeMar DeRozan sign-in trade. They have the Chicago Bulls pick in 2025.
No.
Top 5 protected, I think. You can look that up, but I think it's top 5 protected. And guess which team doesn't want to tank? The Chicago Bulls.
Oh my God.
And guess which team probably isn't good enough to make the playoffs?
Oh, God.
The Chicago Bulls.
No, they're definitely not good enough to make the playoffs.
No.
Definitely
and
not.
So if the Spurs get 2 lottery picks in this draft, potentially 2 lottery picks, not their own pick if they make the playoffs, maybe even 3 if they miss the playoffs next year. People keep talking about OKC's picks.
Yeah.
The Spurs already have Wemby.
Yeah.
And they're about to get like 5 or 6 lottery picks. And maybe even if Atlanta's worse, as we'll talk about right now, if Atlanta's worse, they might end up walking away with like 7 lottery picks. Because most of those the Atlanta picks are unprotected. It's just they did a hell of a job getting high value, not just picks. Like OKC has a ton of picks, the Jazz have a ton of picks, New Orleans has a ton of picks. They got high value picks that are already converting while Wemby's on his rookie contract. Yeah. And they did a great job rebuilding this thing. But I just want to point this out. The Hawks right now have a decision to make because they obviously, we talked about this before. They have Trae Young, they have Dejounte Murray, and now they have and Jalen Johnson. That's like the 3 best players on their team. And then they also have the number 1 overall pick. And look, you can talk about how shitty this draft is. Number 1 overall pick's number 1 overall pick. If you have good scouts, you'll probably figure out a way to, at least maximize that pick and make it the right choice.
Russillo was saying on Bill's pod that this draft is like somebody told him that this draft is like a normal draft that starts at 10. That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
That's never been the case for any draft except for 2000.
I think it is fair to say that this is like a normal draft that starts at like pick 4.
4 or 5. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Which, by the way, when you jump from fucking 12 to 5, that's pretty good. Like, It's still really good. You could still get a real quality impact player here. God, by the way, it's so funny to hear people say like, well, Sarr's clearly the number 1 pick in this draft, but you have Apella and Okonkwo. It's like that is like fucking Kevin O'Connor saying that the Nets can't trade for Trae Young because they already have fucking Cam Thomas. Like,
well, I mean, that's also I heard him say that.
Yeah.
So they can't trade for Trae Young, or I'm assuming Donovan Mitchell as well, because they have Cam Thomas.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they be trading Cam Thomas? Like, why would they keep Cam Thomas in that? I would imagine the other team would value Cam Thomas, or if they don't value Cam Thomas, another team would. You're not going to pay Cam Thomas if you're trading for Trae Young.
Yeah, that's like it's obvious. They obviously don't play together. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very very silly. I don't know. I think a lot of the Hawks stuff. I don't know. I mean, I think that you've been on this all season, and you know that like essentially when you pull Trae Young or Dejounte Murray off the floor, they're essentially the exact same team. That you're even a little better. They are
the last 2 years.
Yeah. So like all-time L for Landry Fields, by the way, and the ownership off to a bad start. Travis Schlenk, we won't forget what you did. We won't forget that this was not your fault.
You were forced into it, didn't want to do it.
Yes. So I really need to figure out where Travis Schlenk is working now.
He's in Washington. He is.
He is in Washington? Okay. All right. So Washington, when they draft Topich, and I'm on the stream, and I'm like, yes, Travis Schlenk. Save them. But I think that I don't know. It's a little weird to me how Trae Young is being talked about.
Look, I'm gonna give up the ghost here. I've been a Trae hater. He's become underrated again.
Yeah,
like Trae's the ultimate underrated, overrated swing guy. Where like depending on the months of the year. The way that you talk about it and the way that you feel, the way the dialogue has been around Trae, and I do think a lot of that just kind of extends to the off the court stuff that everyone hears, which is like he's kind of a pain in the ass to work with. He hasn't been a great teammate to certain guys, but on the court, Trae Young, I personally think that I don't think they should trade him. I think that this is an opportunity to convince Trae that it's worth it to stay in Atlanta. We'll take the number 1 overall pick. We'll trade Dejounte. The question to me is, would you rather sell low on Dejounte Murray? Would you rather sell low on Trae Young? Because the thing that we can learn, and this is what Alex from Down to Dunk said about the Thunder, and he's like, everyone always talks about tanking and they talk about rebuilding and they talk about whatever. He's like, the thing you should take from the Thunder's rebuild is not any of that shit. The thing you should take is sell high when you have the opportunity. And that's exactly what the Thunder did. And the Hawks should learn to not sell low on Trae Young, unless the marriage is like completely done and over with and they can't reconcile. That might just be something beyond it. But in terms of having a star player that can give you a top 5 offense, having a star player that you have never really capably built a great team around. Like they've always had decent talent, but they've never had like pieces that all fit. And Jalen Johnson's really the first kind of role player that's like hand in glove with him. And then you get like role players that could, I think that Jalen Johnson might even like make some all-star teams at some point. So like you have that factor, plus you have this number 1 overall pick. And if you went to the Nets and you just said, look, we'll trade you Dejounte. Let's just say they miss out on Donovan Mitchell. We'll trade you Dejounte for Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't know, Cam Thomas, and a first-round pick or whatever. In that case, I think that you make your team better. I think you make your team better. You get an extra pick. And if you go that route, I don't see a reason to rebuild here like they've been kind of signaling like they want to do, because they don't have their picks the next 3 years. And then you just have a shitty young team with no ability to kind of reap the benefits of having a shitty young team. And you're setting up whoever you take at number 1. If you take Sarr at number 1, you better not trade Trae Young. Like, you better not trade Trae Young because it doesn't make sense. You're setting Sarr up for failure. If you put him in a situation where he can play off of Trae Young, cover up for some of the defensive stuff he has, and build himself into an offensive player where he has a defined role and he can, because he's limited offensively right now, and he can grow into that, that's what they need to do.
That's what I was going to say. Kind of the comp I've been workshopping for Sarr is like Jonathan Isaac, where you're not really sure what the shooting is going to be like, is kind of generally what you've got to be thinking about for Sarr. Like, he's not quite the defender that Isaac is, but he moves the same way and has the same length. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the defensive upside. Honestly, I did my big board. I had Sarr at 7 on my big board, but I still mock him going number 1 to the Hawks. Because part of the reason I don't like Sarr on a bad team. Like, Sarr needs to have – I like Sarr a lot more if he's going into a structured, good team. Like, I like him a lot more for Houston and for Atlanta than I do some of these other teams that just are anarchy right now. Like, he can – with an established role, like, I think if you've got to tear it down, I would rather trade Dejounte than Trae Young. I think if you think Dejounte can – because I just don't think Dejounte is like all that great of a creator. I know he is a creator. He's not a Trae Young level creator.
No.
And
if you're building around Dejounte, you're thinking more, how can we make our team a better two-way team?
Yeah.
And with Trae, you're leaning more into offense, but offense at the end of the day is, especially in the regular season, extremely important. And Trae has led top 5 offenses before.
Well, and like with Sarr, like I've heard the very funny thing about, Capella and Okongwu are there. And I think
it was more about, I think Capella they're done with. I think it's probably more about his fit with Jalen Johnson than anything else, because Jalen is, I know he had a good shooting year this past year, but he's never been an established shooter, and Sarr has those question marks too. So you're like, all right, let's say we start Sarr at the 4, which I think a lot of people thinks he can play at the 4, by the way. Yeah. Let's say you start him at the 4 instead of the 5. How do you get a spacing? Okongwu can't shoot. So if you have 3 non-spacers and you keep Capella, he's a non-spacer. I think it's just more about the fit in general. You cannot worry about if you're worried about Okongwu, you've lost the plot. He's just not good enough to worry about.
That's what I was.
Jalen Johnson's good enough for me to worry about in this situation.
I think the hypothetical of Sarr, because the other thing is, if you're drafting Sarr number 1 overall, you believe that he can find the shot. He hypothetically will be this spacing 4, in the future. That's like his realized version of him. And I think that, honestly, fits kind of well with Okongwu, that like theoretical player where like the thing that he's not good at is rebounding, like Sarr. Like he's kind of a weak rebounder for a 7'1" guy, or 6'11", whatever he is without shoes. So if you put him with kind of a beefy front court guy like Jalen Johnson, who, shot 36% last year, which was a career high, so that's still not like great. But I think that with Bogdanovich, and especially if you have Trae Young, well, again, I know Trae Young shot like 36%, but I don't fucking care. He's a great shooter. Like you're not gonna.
That's more about the difficulty of shot.
Mean anything? Yeah, like that doesn't.
Trae can shoot.
Get that out of your head. I just think that team makes a lot more sense, and I really like the Sarr fit for them. Obviously, way more than any of the fucking guards that they would pick, or Klingon, or because that's what it is. Your options are guards, Sarr, Richiche, or Klingon, and the top 7 is kind of what it sounds like. So, and it's pretty high to take Richiche.
And even if you wanted to move on from Trae and Dejounte, let's just hypothetically say that.
Yeah,
I like some of these guards. None of the guards that are going to get selected at 1 are probably going to be ever as good as those guys. Mm-hmm. And if they do reach that ceiling, like let's say Reed Shepherd or Rob Dillingham, or I don't know, one of these guards, Topic, whoever, reaches that level of player, it's going to be so far from now that, once again, by the time they're in their prime, you pretty much only have this person and Jalen Johnson. Because you're not able to restock your talent through the draft. Atlanta might be eventually a place that can get free agents, but right now it's not a place that gets free agents.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm starting a rebuild, the first thing I want to have is either my own picks, which if they want to call the Spurs, if there's ever going to be a team that has the balls to do the thing that we've been talking about, I'd be shocked. But the Rockets and the Nets have a chance to make this up. With Mikal Bridges going back there for the Nets picks, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. The Suns could call the Nets and say Devin Booker for our picks back. That doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And the Trae Young thing, from what I've heard from a few different people, is a lot of the Trae Young to the Spurs talk is a bit of leakage from Trae's camp to be like, please can Trae go play with Wemby? Because everyone wants to play with Wemby.
Yeah.
Because they see the potential of what that can do for their stock, for their next contract, all that shit. The only thing I think that you have to worry about with both Dejounte and Trae is if you bring them back, you underperform, they're unhappy, and I think Trae has 3 years left on his deal, and Dejounte just signed an extension, but he has 4 years left on his deal. The clock is ticking on those things, especially for Trae, because Trae is like the one that you actually would worry about with that.
Here's what I would say. My thing that I get up onto is I'm a big anti-sunk cost fallacy. Like, you've just got to fucking bite the bullet if you're, like, I don't think that them not having their picks should have any bearing on what, like, it's embarrassing, but I don't think it should have any bearing on how they behave. Like, do this. If you're going to trade Trae Young or Dejounte Murray, you're doing it because you're trying to make your team better, or you're resetting your team. You've made a decision. We're not going to be good enough. We're not going to be good enough with this iteration. So I would just do that, because they're weirdly, they do kind of have some like young players I would like to see more of. Like, I'm not totally out on Griffin yet. I would like to see him get like some real fucking.
I'm not out on Griffin the player. I'm out on Griffin the guy who thinks the rapture is going to happen sometime in the next year.
Jonathan Isaac was fucking hooping.
True. That's a good point. It's a good point. It is.
Jonathan Isaac was hooping.
Has Jonathan Isaac ever liked tweets specifically saying that the rapture is coming? I'm just saying there's a lot of tweets that he has liked that suggest that Jesus is going to return.
Okay. Was that, or was it that Doc Rivers was going to return to take his dad's job? Was that actually what he was talking about? That might have been it.
Maybe that was the prophecy that was foretold.
Yeah. Doc descended from the golf course to take us all away to a 15-15 record the rest of the year.
That ungrateful bitch, JJ Redick. Made you.
I'm behind this rock. Can somebody let me out? It's been 3 days. I love the idea of Doc as Jesus. What are you, betrayed me? He goes to the media and tells the media that he doesn't like Judas, and that Judas needs to play harder at the dinner. Judas didn't pass any mashed potatoes at all during the dinner.
I can't get rid of Ben Simmons in this situation.
Yeah, dude, we're having a pretty good coaching. I want to sit back and appreciate the coaching moment that we're having right now. There's a lot of characters that are coaches. Like, Tibbs is like one of the more normal coaches we have right now, and they're running like full spreads where they're like basically just saying that Tibbs is a Volcel fucking basketball eunuch who doesn't like run anything, and he's like one of the more normal coaches we have left in the NBA.
Yeah, Normie Thibs. He's on the Normie side of the spectrum.
Joe Mazzulla drops a fucking Hannibal Lecter quote every time they put a mic in front of him. Like,
we love him.
Even like normal guys like Eric Spoelstra, the second you look into their personal life, you're like, what the fuck?
She was how old?
What? Met her where? K-Dot, we got some Eric Spoelstra things we want to talk to you about. Let's collab.
Yeah, no, I mean, even Mike Malone has Mike Malone has anger problems at a minimum.
Yeah. The funniest, I love the thing about him saying, and we're gonna bring back Brucey, and Bruce is like, he's doing the Jonah Hill from the Oscars, like the.
I got a bag coming.
I'm not. I will not be doing that.
I will not be turning down $24 million a year for Bruce Brown.
Respect. But anyway, we got off topic. Back to the Hawks. Honestly, the Hawks have like I know Kobe Buffkin like probably sucks, but like maybe not. I don't know. Like I don't know. I've never seen him.
You're
play.
selling me on it.
I'm just saying, like we don't.
He probably sucks, but he's still very young. He's like 20, I think.
We do this all the time with young guys, where it's like, well, they fucking suck. Time to move off. Like, Kobe White's a great fucking example of this. Like Kobe White was dog shit for like 2 to 4. It was like dog shit for 2 years. Was like normal to bad for like a year and a half, and now is good. So
all right. So quick thing on the Kobe Buffkin, AJ Griffin, whatever. Yeah. If there's one team that's probably going to be patient, it's probably the team that just had Jalen Johnson in year 3 become like a good starter when he didn't play at all his rookie year. Like he's probably the biggest exception to that rule. If you don't play at all your rookie year, I'm not saying like AJ Griffin played his rookie year. He was actually pretty decent. Like there are guys that play a little bit of minutes. Jalen Johnson's one of the only guys I can ever remember that literally spent a full year in the G League and barely played at all for the Hawks, and then turned out to be a legit good NBA player with potential star upside. Like that is a very rare thing that happens. So I think the Hawks, especially if they're going into like more of like, even if it's not a full on rebuild, even if it's a reset, I think at a minimum, you want to try to rebuild Trae's value over this time. And like, if that's true, if we are to believe that Jake Fisher thing that was just dropped, that says that Brandon Ingram might have more trade value than Trae Young right now.
Keep Trae. Keep Trae.
That's what I'm saying. Is that keep Trae until you can show the league that he can still be that guy. And I think that if you put better pieces around him, you might get to the chance where you could do that. And honestly, even just it's addition by subtraction. Moving on from Dejounte, even if I think Dejounte is a solid, good player, like I just don't think that pairing is ever going to work. And I think that if they just make a more normal team around Trae, they can be competitive and they can, let their guys grow into the players that they're going to be. Because Trae puts everyone in a defined role. Trae puts everyone in a, more of, just things that they need to do to develop their game over time. And then if they prove to be good enough and Trae wants out in a year, you get more shit for Trae a year from now. And you don't do this thing where you're just blowing it up because you feel like you have to blow it up because you got the number 1 overall pick in a draft that honestly you might miss on the first pick. And then it's like it's just getting rid of Trae for nothing essentially, because you don't have potential to get those high picks moving forward. So I think that the chances of them doing a full on rebuild, it doesn't make any sense in my brain to me.
And the other thing is shit's about to get real fucking weird this summer. Like people, you might get real offers, and I think the benefit that Atlanta has is I think you can kind of pick and choose. Like if you have better offers for Dejounte, trade Dejounte. Like if you're not getting what you want for Trae Young. Like because I think that's the real fucking problem is that was fucking stupid to begin with. That was one of the that was such a dumb trade. They're still fucking digging themselves out of that.
By the way, if you have a small guard who gets buckets, why would you ever want to put Dejounte Murray with him anyway?
Yeah.
Philadelphia 76ers.
Talk me into it. But that's what I guess that's just what I'm saying is that I think that I think that either way, this team is going to look better as long as one of those guys is gone. I would bet on Trae. I believe in Trae more than I believe in Dejounte Murray. Even giving up kayfabe here. Now, if you have a pathway to get 2 players who are better than Dejounte Murray, okay, now that you could talk me into Dejounte fitting more on that team. But right now, as it stands, that seems like, especially with this fit that doesn't work, that seems like a pipe dream. And especially in this window in these next few years. Whereas Trae could be the best player on a playoff team. We've seen it before, even if it was a bit fluky.
he hasn't really had a great supporting cast around him. You can make it better, and I think that you can right the wrongs at a minimum. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about the whole situation. By the way, this was a report from Draft Express. The Ricochet, Sarr, Shepard, Klingon, and Dillingham are the 5 guys that they are considering for the number 1 overall pick. I think it's gotta go. You gotta go Sarr.
I think Sarr. I don't like Sarr. I think Sarr is.
I do.
Really
I think he's
risky.
Gonna be good.
I mean, I think he'll be fine, but I just like a lot of the other top 7 guys. Even like Dillingham, who's like pretty boomer bust. I like his upside a little bit more than Sarr. I don't trust guys that like are really, really struggling to shoot like at like levels below. I don't like Buzelis for that exact same reason. I have Buzelis like in like the 20s. And like people think he's going to go 5.
I don't like Buzelis either. I'm not.
Yeah.
I like Holland more than I like Buzelis, because the reason why I like Holland is because I at least know there's a baseline level of athleticism. He got to the line a ton. Even if the 3-point shot didn't fall, I think over time, if he can ever get to the point where he's an average 3-point shooter, bam, he's a good a good to great role player. And then if he can ever develop the shot even more and become kind of, and he shot well at the combine, which I don't really know if that matters at all, to be honest with you. I think if anything, we talked about this a little bit. I would consider Holland with the first pick if I were the Hawks, because I think in a draft where even like I like Sarr, I think he's a top 3 prospect in this class.
Yeah,
but I do understand, especially if you're going blank slate and you're for sure trading Trae and Dejounte, I think I'd take Holland. Because I think that Sarr's going to be a guy that you're going to be disappointed in if you expect him to be the guy. And I think that Holland might have a better long-term outcome if you just give him the ball from day one and you let him kind of cook and learn from his mistakes. And your team's going to fucking suck, like no matter what. But you're also trading Trae and Dejounte, so you don't care about your team being good or not. Yeah. So I think I would, if I'm trading Trae and Dejounte, I'd rather take Holland. If I'm keeping Trae, I think Sarr's probably the right pick to make, just based on everything that I know about these guys.
I like Sarr. I mean, I like Holland. Holland's one of the better upside swing guys. And I finally
like. And that's my strategy on this draft is that I think that everyone kind of has flaws, and that I'm not treating this like I would a normal draft. I'm treating this more like there's no consensus, so my board's going to be all over the place. Like I generally stay closer to consensus because consensus is usually right. Yeah. Not to say that consensus is like right the whole board down, but consensus is usually 50% right, 60% right, and then I fill in the gaps. I think my board's going to be all over the place compared to consensus. Like I have guys that are probably in the 20s in the top like 6 in this draft.
Same. Yeah. I have Deron Holmes irresponsibly high, I would say.
Where do you have Deron Holmes right now?
Let me pull it up. Just I want to make sure that I have the right thing. I have him. You're not gonna like this because I have a lot of guys that I have like Devin Carter and
no, I have Devin Carter very high as well.
Okay. I have Deron Holmes number 10.
I have Deron Holmes number 10 on my board. I'm not even joking.
Let's go. Let's
Deron
go.
Holmes number 10 on my board. I have Deron Holmes 10 on my board. I have so the 2 guys that I really think that I just said that might end up in the teens or 20s that I have in my top 10 other than Deron Holmes.
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth on Devin Carter. I landed on him at 7.
I have him at 8. So we're very close there.
Okay. Here's my pitch for Devin Carter at 7. Because I had him at like 4 or 5 yesterday. And I was like, I still think you have to have a sliver of star upside. And for me, even the best case scenario with Devin Carter, it's probably more like Derek White.
I was just going to say like Josh Hart, Derek White.
Yeah, that level of role player, right?
Yeah, because he's like a rebound freak. Like he's going to be like he's like a Marcus Smart, Josh Hart level rebounder. Like as a smaller guard. So the no ceilings guys mocked him to the Miami Heat, and I got so mad. I was like,
that would be so disastrous.
We can't.
Hopefully they don't keep their pick, so that doesn't happen.
I'm hoping not.
So Chuck was the first one. Chuck from Chucking Darts was the first one to put me onto Devin Carter. like 4 months ago, 5 months ago at this point.
Yeah.
When was the last time we had a draft this bad? 2013.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy that was selected in the top 10 of that draft that was a major conference player of the year in college, averaged about 20 points a game, was a very good athlete with good touch and tools, and turned out to be probably the 5th or 6th best player from that draft. Can you guess who it is?
Is KCP? Is that
is correct?
Is that? Yeah. Okay.
So this is what I'm thinking with Carter. Now, Carter's a year older than KCP. KCP was a sophomore when he came out.
Yeah.
And he kind of bounced around. He wasn't even good for his first team. And I think that's what a lot of quote unquote bad drafts have, is like, if you even look at that draft, the only guys that hit in that lottery that were good for their own team that drafted them, I think the only guy I can remember, the only two were CJ McCollum and Steven Adams. KCP went on to have success later with the Lakers and the Nuggets.
Hold on.
Oladipo got traded twice.
Put some respect on Kelly Olynyk's name.
Okay. In a meaningful way.
He won game 7. He won game 7. Did you sign him
to a second contract?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
I thought he was a free agent.
Oh, no, wait, no, you're right. He did. No,
yeah.
We did.
Second contract. This is what I'm saying. I think second contract is indicative of success for your first team that is like meaningful. And I think the only guys that got contracts from that lottery, this is sickening what I'm about to do right now.
Yeah.
Were Steven Adams and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now, look, there's never going to be 1-for-1 comps across, but if you want to talk about a guy that was just the best player in a major conference, and by the way, UConn is in Providence's conference where Devin Carter went. Yeah. His tools are basically identical to DeAnthony Melton, but he's a much better offensive player than DeAnthony Melton. Yeah. And defensively, he has a lot of the same indicators. The stock numbers are great. The rebounding numbers are great. The shooting is the only thing that I'm like, is the shooting good enough and sustainable enough? I believe in the shot. I know he's got to fix his form a little bit, but I think long-term, he's a guy that has potential to be like high-level role player, whether it's a KCP 5th starter type or a Derek White 4th guy on a contender. I think that that's his long-term potential, which is why I have him at 7 on my board. I think
we're in lockstep because like this is the math on this class is like guys are going to be pretty good versus like, is the upside of these other guys worth it? You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at things like, would I rather have Rob Dillingham, who like probably will not be as good of a
huge ceiling floor guy for him?
Yes. This is what
huge. The floor could fall out and he's out of the league, or the ceiling is just like he is the outlier despite all of the red flags. Because he's so productive and talented.
He could be like a Dame Lillard, like upside,
exactly.
Or he could be like
someone said Kemba, and I was like, that's
better. Yeah, that's
probably even Kemba in a bad draft would be incredible to get. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
and the thing is that okay, so most of these guys from the 2013 draft didn't get second contracts on their team.
Part of that was the Orlando being dumb.
Orlando was stupid and traded Oladipo way too early. Yeah. Totally agree.
Right. Yes.
But I'm just saying that OKC has, I think, the same exact pick that they had in the 2013 draft.
They do, 12.
And I'm just saying, OKC needs a big man.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about Edie on the fucking...
I'm watching fucking look. Yeah. Edie's never going to be able to defend at a high enough level to really like slow down the Nuggets or whatever, or Jokic.
Yeah.
But like the best Jokic defender in the NBA right now is Zubac, and I really think there's a sliver of a chance he's like a 7'4" Zubac.
Yeah,
and maybe with even long-term shooting potential. And I'm like, if that is the case, there's a case to be made for Edie there to OKC, and
the Thunder don't need Edie to be good. Edie's a total fucking luxury for them.
Yeah,
he's a break in case of emergency. You have Chet playing center most of the time, and you play small with J-Dub at the 4 and all your other fucking guys that are skilled. Edie is I would feel that's what I want the Thunder to come away with. Like if they could somehow trade up for Klingon, get Edey, get one of these giant body guys. The Thunder and the Grizzlies are the two teams that need guys like that. Because I thought about that, because right now the Grizzlies are probably out of Klingon's range. They would need to trade up to get Klingon at this point. And I thought about that for the Grizzlies. Yeah, and I thought about that for the Grizzlies.
They apparently like Edey.
That's what I'm saying. They might just say fuck it, we ball and take Edey. And I don't know that I would hate that.
Take him, I know he's going to be good. Because I'm not even just saying because of the small bean drafting team. I'm just saying because I think they really know that they have to get a guy with this pick, and they're going to trust their scouts to be like, all right, we can't have another Zaire Williams here.
Yes. And I think, honestly, I think Edey's a relatively like safe pick. Like his floor,
it's starting to feel that way.
Like I don't think like his floor is like competent, like backup big. You know what I'm saying? Like at the absolute worst, he's like a giant fucking body. Like I don't know. Like maybe he's totally unplayable and he's so slow that like it can't happen. But like I don't know.
There's a sliver of a chance that it's not that. And so Edey's measurables at the combine, dude, this is insane. 7'5". So he's a legit 7'5".
That's nuts.
7'10".
That's taller than Wemby, isn't it? Isn't Wemby 7'4"?
I think they're both 7'5".
Okay.
Or I think they're like the same height.
Jesus.
His wingspan is 7'10" and 3/4.
What's the standing reach? Does he have a 10-foot standing reach?
I honestly don't know. I know. I mean, I think Rudy has longer arms. I think Rudy has a 7'11" wingspan.
God.
And I think that Rudy has a 9-something standing reach. So, and
9'7" standing reach for Edey.
Jesus. And he weighs 300 pounds. Like, he's not like most of these rail thin guys that are that tall.
Yeah. I want to nip this in the bud right now because everyone's like, wow, and he's shooting threes. Don't care about that.
I don't care about that either.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Him and Klingon, I know Klingon shot well at the combine.
Yeah.
Because I do want to talk about whether we think the combine matters or not. My thing with the combine is it doesn't matter if it's something that is completely, like, I don't care if either of those guys shoot in the NBA. If they shoot, it's a nice bonus. It's a plus, especially Edey, because Edey's displayed some touch from, the elbow in and the free throw line. Klingon, I can't believe he shot as well as he did because he shot like 55% from the line and really didn't show a ton of touch in college.
Well, that's what Will's saying in the comments, that like Mitchell Robinson was like killing it in those shooting workouts. Sure. He's a 40% free throw shooter. Like it doesn't matter. That's stuff.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. Yeah. If long term you think they could eventually shoot, sure, fine. I think with Edey, it's more like, can he have an elbow jumper? Because that's the kind of guy, whether he's coming off the bench or he eventually grows to the point where he's a starter, you want him to have more than just a post up restricted area game. You want him to have a little bit of a touch from the mid range. I don't care about the 3-point shot, but
if you could develop like a sky hook or something like that, like a little flip up or something. I don't know.
Can he have a Jonas Valanciunas bag? Like that's kind of the idea behind what he could potentially become as an offensive player. But I don't care about that. But I
have Edey 13th, by the way, on my board.
I'll tell you where I have Edey right now on my board because I'm pulling it up. I have Edey 11 on my board.
Let's go. We're closer than I thought we were going to be. I was like, this is so fucked up. Like,
okay, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't care about, like, for example, I don't care that Klingon and Edey shot well at the combine.
Yeah.
Because all the indicators show that it's probably a long shot that they'll be shooters. Yeah. And also, more importantly to me, they don't need to be shooters.
Yeah.
The things that I care about when I'm coming into the combine is like Ron Holland versus Ryan Dunn, right?
Yes.
Ron Holland shot great and already had some indicators that he might be a shooter. And apparently he's a dog. He works really hard. He's always in the gym. You hear about him constantly working on his game. That's a good positive thing. Ryan Dunn is like, this is jackass. Yeah, I'm the worst offense. Millennial TV reference. I just want to say, I'm the worst offensive player. Someone tweeted at me and said, he's Matisse Thybulle if he took a Super Mario mushroom.
Yeah.
Even better on defense than Thibault somehow. He can play zone and man-to-man better, and he's a better on-ball defender, but his offense is so terrible. He shot like shit. It's just adding to the resume of why I don't believe in Ryan Dunn and why there might be a sliver of hope that I believe more in Ron Holland and his shot long-term, because there were already some base level indicators there. And then this just adds to, if I'm thinking about it. On the whole, I don't really care about the combine. I think the athletic stuff probably matters more than any of the shooting stuff because the sample's so small. And some guys really pop. Devin Carter and Reed Shepherd both killed the vert.
That's what I was just going to say. My boy Reed was leaping Reed. Yep.
And even Edie, his agility drills, his numbers were, I mean, he had better agility. The one agility drill he did, he was better than Sar, not just Klingon, Sar. Like, so I don't know. I think there's real potential for some guys that were a little bit overthinking just productive college players like Carter and Edie just to be really good in a shit draft. Even if they're older, I don't care. If anything, that might be a benefit for a good team because like OKC and Memphis, they want guys that can contribute on their rookie contracts. Like Cason Wallace is a perfect example of this for OKC right now. He's contributing in the playoffs as a rookie. So like the earlier these guys can play, the better for the good teams that happen to find themselves in the lottery.
No, it's going to be interesting. I feel like it seems like the consensus is that like in some order you're going to have the guards, you're going to have Rob, Reed, Castle, and Topic. And then you're also going to have what?
You're missing someone.
What? Rob?
I have someone that I want to introduce that I'll let you cook on this, but I have another guard I would like to throw into the fold.
Okay. I'm just saying the consensus because I might agree with you. You know what I'm saying? It's looking like the consensus across like boards and stuff like that is that most people think that it's like a kind of a mini tier at the top of like guys who could hypothetically go number one is like Reed, Castle, Rob, Rishishay, Klingon, and Sar also to like a little bit of an extent. You know what I'm saying? Like probably with Rishishay and Klingon a little bit lower than those guys, but like that's almost like a mini tier of guys. And then once you get after that 8th pick is where things can get really weird really fast. Like I think that it's totally possible someone like in reality takes someone like Devin Carter like 8.
We're going to get the Cam Johnson pick in this draft. And I think that's totally fine, by the way. Even if it's someone I don't like, I don't care because I think that the consensus being all over the board is a good thing for a draft like this.
Yeah, I was going to say Kaishan Edwards is going to go like 9 and it's going to melt Twitter. Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are guys that I think I generally think the guys that rise up the boards, like Cam Johnson's rise was kind of out of the blue. We didn't really expect it because he was an older prospect. I know he did well at the combine, if I remember correctly. He was very productive in college, but that was such a shock. Generally speaking, it's usually the opposite, where it's a little bit younger. Guys, Jalen Williams was a riser a few years ago, where it was like he kind of came out of nowhere. He was a late first, and then he rose all the way up into the lottery. Turned out to be an amazing pick, and he crushed the combine. He was older, but not too old. He was 21 on draft night. And he's a guy that kind of has everything, the do-it-all wing that you're looking for. I think there are some younger guys that are really going to rise, and I think some of the older guys might drop, and they'll get some great value. And one of my risers, my biggest riser on my board over the last 2 weeks, basically. Kyle, turn the TikTok camera on.
Let's go.
Are we sure Bob Carrington isn't a top 5 prospect in this draft?
Let's go. I've only got my big board down to 16 so far, and I have not added Bob Carrington yet. So I would like to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so there's a few interesting kind of like Klingon versus Edie.
Yes.
Devin Carter versus Jared McCain for like off-ball guards. Like these are interesting like philosophical debates, right?
Yeah.
I look at Bob Carrington and I'm like, I think he's a better prospect than someone like Isaiah Collier, who's being ranked way ahead of him.
Yes.
And I think the thing I look at, because I know Bub was higher on boards earlier, and then he fell because he struggled early in the season. He got better as the season went on. people have pointed out to me in the Discord, he was really good against high-end competition this year. He got better with the shot as the year went on. And my whole argument with Bub Carrington is that when you watch, first off, his measurements were pretty good at the combine. He's a legit 6'4" with a 6'8" wingspan. Mm-hmm. He's a good athlete. He's not a great athlete, but he's a good athlete. And when you watch him, the thing is that he has a lot of the things that I look for in star guards, which Dillingham has these things, but Dillingham is so small in comparison to a guy like Bub Carrington, where weight-wise, measurements-wise, everything, he's just so much smaller. Bub can create separation. He shot 52% on non-rim twos this year, which is basically all pull-up jumpers and floaters. It displays great touch. He's a good free throw shooter. He's for a freshman guard, a very good pull-up three-point shooter. He had a 4-to-2 assist-to-turnover ratio. And when you watch him on tape, his production doesn't match the tape. Like, the tape, he really pops when you watch. Like, he controls the game really well. He's got good pace. He can create separation. And I just believe in the long-term touch upside. Like, the thing is, for me, if you want to be a star guard and you're not some massive dude, like Topic has the like, he's bigger, like he can have potential to be like a driver and playmaker, and then the shot comes along and you have a star on your hands, right?
Yeah.
If you're a smaller, he's not small, but if you're a smaller guard, I need to see the pull-up shooting for me and the general touch indicators and the ability to create separation. And he can do all of those things. I think that he has a real chance to be a guy that turns into like a neutral to solid defender. And then on the other end, he's giving you pull-up shooting. He's giving you creation off the bounce. And he's going to be a pretty good playmaker. Like, I don't think he's like an elite playmaker by any means, but as he gets more reps, I think he'll get better. And I think a lot of people are probably fading him because he didn't shoot well from three, but he shot a ton of pull-up threes and he still shot 32% and was good from the line, really good on pull-up twos, displayed touch everywhere. I'm like very, very in on Bub Carrington being a top 5 or 6 prospect in this class.
Let's go. I probably should have been able to guess this from your tweets earlier. that the Bub Carrington thing. I'm willing to hear it out. You know, like I'm working the opposite way, where I'm also trying to find like a garbage man, like low efficiency thing. He's fallen quite a bit, so I'm more in on him than I was. I still can't quit Jacoby Walter. I know everyone's like out on him, but like, you watch him, there's a lot of combine. There's a lot of Chris Middleton there. I'm just gonna say that. There's like a lot of that fucking jump shooting shit, and I think he's like, it's the Kyrie defense thing, where like, I know he like wasn't a good defender, but it's not because he's like not capable of being a good defender. It's not a Trae Young thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, he
has long arms. He's got decent size.
He's got good feel, and he does have like a little bit of dog to him, you know what I'm saying? I think that people think just because he's like had some bad defensive setting, like, that he didn't necessarily have things. So I'm a little bit in on Jacoby Walter. I'm still like exploring that. I'm still kind of talking myself into it.
If you want to talk yourself into a high level Jacoby and Isaiah Collier were the two guys that underwhelmed in college, but were high recruits coming out.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I think someone said this in the Discord earlier too. I could see Collier. Mateo in the Discord said that he could see him becoming like a third guard, like a guy that like runs your bench units, is capable enough at everything, but doesn't have elite skills. Like, this is it. When I watch him, I don't see any elite lead guard skills like I do in some of these other guys. Jacoby, I mean, the thing is that he's like a shooter who the shots didn't go in.
Yeah, the shots didn't go in. Yeah.
That seems to be the problem with him, is that it's like, if you are that kind of, but he does have good size. He got to the line a decent amount and he shot 80% from the line. So like,
I would also
and he shot the shit out of the ball at the combine too.
Well, and this is what I was going to say. You go back and you watch those shots he missed. It's a little bit of the Trae Young thing, where tough like shot. he's taken a lot of tough shots. Like, so I kind of believe in him as like especially like if you're in the middle and you want to take a swing, because I think he's going to slide out of the lottery. I don't think he's I think he'll be available at like 15, 16, 17 for some of these teams. I think if you're trying to go boom bust, I think he's a really good, interesting one. Because
see, I see
if
him topping out as more of a role player is the thing. It's like you really have to believe in if you're like guard sized. I know he could probably get away with playing a little bit of like 2-3. I think he'll probably end up being a shooting guard in the NBA.
yes, he would be, yeah.
The comp that someone said to me, I think it was Cosmos said was Malik Beasley. And like if he's Malik Beasley, that's a fine player to take at like 15 or 16. And if that is the case, then I'm fine with the pick. But my thing is like, what do we do with these guards? Like him and Jared McCain are kind of the same, where they're just not playmakers really. Like they don't play make at all. And like, what does a non-playmaking guard do for you unless you are an elite shooter and a great defender? Like you have to have both of those things for me to want to take you in the lottery. But in the teens, I'm fine with it. Like the teens is like, you're just searching for talent at that point, and the upside is probably more role player that can help a team. Maybe potentially, I know he's pretty young, but like on his rookie contract would be great. If not a little bit further down the line. But yeah, the thing is like, I feel like role play, and this was the argument that I made for Brandon Miller. Do you remember last year when we talked about Brandon Miller and the reason why I still had him? I think I had him like 5 on my board, even though he obviously cleared that this year. My thing is that I just feel like even if he was a role player, role players do so much more advanced things now than they did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And like, you need to be like, the reason why you could talk me into Devin Carter or Jared McCain, or maybe even Isaiah Collier over Jacoby, is because I think they all might be able to get to the point where they can make like basic playmaking reads that we see with these like high level role players. But the thing with Jacoby is like, if you believe in the shot and you think he has decent size and he could be a better Malik Beasley, that's like a 5th starter on a good team. Like if the defense is legit.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I honestly think, I don't know. I still kind of think he can play make a little bit. Like it's not like he has like, he's not like a chucker. You know what I'm saying? Like you watch the games, he does have feel. Like, I don't know. I'm like talking myself into him. I like more of the surefire role player guys like De Silva and Carter and like all of those guys like ahead of him, Deron Holmes. All my dogs. But I've got, I'm like looking at him lower down the thing. I have a question. Why is Buzelis going like 5th on some boards, and why is Tyler Smith way the fuck down at the bottom? They're the same player, but I think Tyler Smith has higher upside. Like, I'm just going to say that. Like,
I don't really know much about Tyler Smith to really be able to say. I know he shot like shit at the combine and he isn't really a shooter, but he's a big guy, right? Isn't he like a bigger wing / big?
He's like Buzelis, where like he's got his shot looks good and he's like hypothetically a shooter, but he like didn't shoot very well in college. Buzelis, I found this out today. He literally, because he was like, he was a great shooter in high school. He was great his senior year. Every other year he was dog shit, and then he went back to being dog shit in the G League. Like,
you couldn't talk me into Buzelis. He's not the kind of prospect that I like. Like, I know he's 6'11", which is going to be, or 6'10" or whatever, which is going to appeal to a lot of people. That's like that. If I miss on it, honestly, this is I got burned on Gigi Jackson last year for this, where I was like, you couldn't talk me into him in a million years. Like it's you watch him, even if you think that he has the tools and the talent and long term and all this shit, I'm staying away from him. And he turned out to be probably a lottery level talent, and he went in the 2nd round. But Buzelis is kind of the same kind of idea to me, different players, but the shooting was dreadful in the G League. Like, I mean, people talk about Ron Holland like he can't shoot, and he shot better than Buzelis.
Yeah.
And he got to the line way more often. Buzelis never gets to the line. I don't see it with him at all.
I'm looking at like Kevin O'Connor's draft guide, and he's got him like spacer. And I'm like, what the fuck is he spacing?
He is white.
I guess that's all it is. Like, why are you like, I don't know. I don't get that shit at all. And it's so weird because there's so many other guys with like size. I think it's sneaky kind of a good year for centers. I like Yves Messi. I like. Honestly, like, I'm lower on Ware than some people, but I still think he's pretty good, and he did pretty well at the combine with a lot of the like speed stuff and like running the floor and stuff. I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting draft. I think that I think it's a pretty normal draft just without like a top three of guys like Ant Edwards, LaMelo Ball, and Wiseman at the top. Like, you just pretend you're starting that draft at 4 or whatever, and you've got a good.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a lot of guys to look at. I also, if I remember correctly, I think 2013 was a pretty decent year for big guys, but most of the best big guys did not go at the top. Because remember, that was before we got attuned to like fading big guys.
Yeah, right.
2013 was like Nerlens Noel, Alex Len,
BB Nogueira.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah. I think the best bigs that went in that draft were Gobert and Steven Adams, and they both went late lottery and then late first round. Unless you consider
Justin Patton. Oh no, that was 2017.
No, I was gonna say that was like 2015, right? 2016.
2017, I think.
Yeah, 2017.
It was the Jason Tatum draft. No, who else was in that? There was someone else who was. Yeah, BB Nogueira, Gorgie Jang, and Mason Plumlee were in that draft.
That's honestly not bad backup bigs for guys that I think they. If I remember correctly, Mason Plumlee was a late first. I think was Gorgie a second round pick?
No, he was first round. He was Wolves drafted him right ahead of Mason Plumlee, in between Tony Snell and Mason Plumlee.
So both late first. Okay, yeah.
There's a lot of guys who like stuck in the league. Tim Hardaway Jr. was picked 24. And that Reggie Bullock was 25. Like,
once again, weird drafts tend to have these kind of the best players go in the middle and the late first.
44 in that draft, Mike Muscala. What are the other centers?
All-time legend. Yeah. I'll never forget him. Also, a good undrafted class, if I remember correctly. I believe both Seth Curry and Robert Covington were in that draft, which both good for a shit draft to get two good role players that had decent careers in a very bad draft is always a good outcome. Okay, so all right. That's enough on the draft stuff for now. Later this week, we'll do our mock draft on the Patreon episode so that we can discuss our big boards more. So if you want to hear that, sign up for the Patreon. We'll do a mock draft.
You can tune into me making the Hunter Salas pitch to Trill and him shooting me down.
Making the what?
Hunter Salas.
See, I'm not even hip to half these names still, so we're catching up.
He passes the most important NBA draft test of all time. When you go on Tankathon and you look at his stuff,
let's go.
Green pluses are there, and how many red little minuses are there? He's goated at that one.
That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Okay, more slot. Brandon Ingram and Donovan Mitchell, both the newest names on the trade slot market right now. It does sound like the Los Angeles Lakers are finally throwing their hat in the ring for Donovan Mitchell.
Okay.
So, from what I understand, this year's pick with the Lakers is if the Pelicans decide they want the Lakers pick next year, the Lakers can trade it on draft night. And if the Pelicans decide to keep the pick, which I would imagine they don't because they already have a first round pick and this is kind of a weak draft, as we've said 100 times. If they decide they want the Lakers pick next year, then the Lakers can trade that pick on draft night. So the Lakers, either way, have 3 potential first round picks, more swaps to trade. Salary-wise, they could trade Austin Reeves, I believe one of Rui Hachimura or Jared Vanderbilt, and then all those picks for Donovan Mitchell. 1, do you think they should do it? 2, do you think it's realistic? And 3, will they get outbid? And who would outbid them?
Well, sorry. What the first question again, one more time.
3. Okay, so 1, should they do it?
Should they do it? Okay, sorry. That was the one I missed. I don't know. Like, what's the cost, right? I think that's what this is going to come down to.
Austin Reeves, one of probably Rui Hachimura and Jared Vanderbilt, I think, to make the salary work. Mm-hmm. And then 3 first round picks, and then probably, I guess, 2 swaps.
That's pretty steep for I would be a little alarmed by that if LeBron was as openly flirting with retiring as he has been.
Shams says 2 more years.
Really? Then I think you do it, honestly. Donovan Mitchell's really fucking good. And I like him a lot better. If he's your I like him a lot better as your third best player. You know,
are we sure? Are we sure you would be the third best player?
As of now, the other
maybe
were first.
Him and LeBron is an argument. I think AD might be the best player on that team, but
yeah, I think AD is the best player on that team. But like, I don't know, LeBron. I don't know. You would have the best top 3 in the NBA, bar none.
Oh yeah, there's no other team that has 3 top 15 players.
Guys. Yeah.
That complement each other well too, because that's the thing that we keep talking about with these big threes don't work. Yeah, big threes don't work when it's Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and fucking. Yeah. I think big threes do work when Anthony Davis is the best player on the team and he brings you a lot of the role player shit that you miss.
Yeah, and say what you will about Pelinka and the Lakers front office, they are pretty good at margin moves, but like they're pretty good at rattling around and finding guys and stuff like that, and like. I'm not crying over spilled Austin Reeves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think if you can get, my fear would be that LeBron leaves after next year. But
I think if they get Mitchell, he'd stick it out for 2 years.
Yeah. If he's sticking it out for 2 years and I get 2 cracks at this thing, I think it's worth it because even then you're still going to have some shitty first round picks. When LeBron leaves, you'll have some funny money to throw around, like a little bit at least. I think they should do that. Now the question is, do they get outbid by somebody else?
So who would outbid them? Because the other teams that are rumored to be interested are Miami and the Nets. Miami, I'm assuming that it's with the Jimmy Butler thing that we've discussed, with Jimmy either going to the Sixers or another team, and then assets going to the Cavs. And then maybe one of their young wings, and that would be equivalent to like an Austin Reeves, even though Austin's a little bit older and better right now than Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic. But long term, maybe those guys, you believe in them a little bit more.
I wonder,
especially with the importance of wings.
I wonder if you can get more for Tyler Hero this offseason, because he did kind of acquit himself like somewhat a little bit.
He's got 1 year less on the deal. That's probably the best part about it. You're not trading it with 4 years. You're trading it with 3 years.
Yeah.
Him and Garland, just like if they'd have to find another team, because him and Garland is just.
Yeah.
My problem every time I look at these Cleveland trades is that whoever they get back, they're going to have to change their team drastically no matter what. Because the Mobley Allen fit just makes it weird to fit in a lot of guys. Like Reeves makes some sense. Jaquez, I guess if you think he can play, if he's a 3, makes some sense, but he's probably more like a 4. And then I don't know. It just
who's Mobley's front court partner? Like, what do you get in a front court partner for Mobley? That's what I can't like understand. Like,
OG Anunoby would be like the best person I can think of, but there's one OG Anunoby.
Yeah, there's like just not a lot of those.
He'll help with your rebounding and spacing issues. And he's a good enough passer and finisher to kind of put next to Mobley. But there is literally one guy that I think could make that work that isn't obviously better than Mobley.
Yeah, I think that's the problem they're going to run into, because I think
you'll be Towns. That's a good one.
Ooh, yeah. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Are the Wolves to blow this up if like with the owner? No, I'm just saying if they lose this series and the ownership thing is like, we can't afford this.
That's so weird. Matt seems to think so. I would be so shocked. Like, this is the fucking the fable about cutting the baby in half. Like, you know what I mean? Like straight up. Like, I also like can't watch that happen to these poor fucking Wolves fans. They get
I know
enjoyable basketball for one fucking season, and then that is the worst thing that could possibly.
They're not getting nothing back for Karl Anthony Towns in this situation. What if they're the third team and they send Towns and then Mitch? So you get Towns in there, and then like Jared Allen. See, this is where it gets confusing, because then you have to send Jared Allen somewhere. And then you have to set, like, it's just so complicated.
It's gonna be lit. This, I'm gonna be so disappointed if this is a shitty slop summer.
No, it isn't.
I feel like we're in for slopocalypse here. We're going back to the 2020? No,
2019 was the last year.
2019. Yeah, 2019 was the last good slop year we had. Like we're having a vintage team. So
okay. So let's say you wanted to put Karl Anthony Towns with Mobley. Oh my God, Mobley, Garland, and Karl Anthony Towns is just such a funny, like talented, good. I don't know about Garland anymore, but beating allegations at certain points, and then also just like, this is why we never believed in you, Karl Anthony Towns, in these last 2 games.
Those guys will certainly either succeed together or fail together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they will either
one of the other, I would say.
Yeah. This is like they will either acquit themselves or it'll be like one of the nastiest things. See, that's interesting. I wonder because like they've actually done a pretty good job. I always said like Cleveland didn't have any threes. They've done a pretty good job of finding I think Strus is a fine player. I think Karis LeVert, off the bench, is a great player for what they have. I think Dean Wade is a good 2-guard. They actually have a decent amount of wing help. It's just that excuse me, their bigger problem is that their front court and back court don't fucking fit together. And those are their 4 best players.
Well, that's the thing is that they made the royal sin of, okay, what if we did the 2 bigs thing, but neither of them can really shoot?
Yeah.
And then also, what if we did the 2 skilled guards things, but both of them are 6 foot?
Yeah.
So it's I think they could survive maybe one or the other, but it's really hard to survive both when you're trying to build a team. And this is the thing that I keep talking about with the Sixers. And when people are like, why don't they try to go get Donovan Mitchell? I'm like, because then you've just allocated all your resources to even as talented as Maxey, Mitchell, and Embiid would be, you can't allocate all of your resources to 2 guards and a big. You need to have some balance where you have some way to get playable wings. And most of the time when we're looking at a team like Cleveland, it's just, like you said, they've done about as good as they can they had no assets, and they went out and they got Max Strus, and they've tried to make it work, and it's just not quite enough. And right now, obviously, they have injuries and stuff, but it's not quite enough if you are looking at the fact that this league is just really predicated on having at least good role player wings. If you have a star big or a star guard to put around these guys, if not straight up star wings. So I'm looking at the Brandon Ingram stuff because by the way, I do just want to say the only other team that I've heard are interested in both Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell is the Nets. And I mean, we've talked about the Nets a lot. What do you think a trade would look like for the Nets that could potentially outbid that Lakers or Heat package?
Well, they would be able to send the best player, I think. I think Mikal Bridges would be the best player.
I don't think they want to trade Bridges.
Then I'm not really sure. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Would you rather have Cam Johnson or Austin Reeves? Because to me, that's I think I might rather have Cam Johnson.
I was going to say, I think I'd rather have Cam Johnson. And
I like Austin Reeves. I think he's good, but I also think that
the Nets also have the best picks, I think.
Yeah.
I would much rather have the Suns picks than the Lakers picks.
Yeah.
Definitely the Miami picks.
That's the best point.
Yeah.
The Lakers or Miami.
Yeah. So if you want high value picks, the Nets are going to give you that. Now, my thing, if you're the Nets, you should not be trading those fucking picks to put together a 46-win team. I don't. Oh God, that would be so bad. I'd feel so bad for Nets fans. I mean, they would be fine, but that team, are you sure they would have home court if they added Donovan Mitchell with Mikal Bridges and
I don't think their depth would be good enough because I think that outside of if you bring back Claxton, let's just say the hypothetical trade is Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Thomas, and 2 Suns picks. Let's just hypothetically say that, okay?
Yeah.
Because maybe there's a year left and it's less value on the return or whatever. Let's just throw that out there. What does the rest of your team look like outside of Bridges, Mitchell, and Claxton. Because you have Ben Simmons still sitting on your fucking books.
God damn.
And then it's just not, I think that's like a 6 seed in the East. Because it's just the depth problem. Like they haven't, and who was Noah Clowney might be something, but like,
yeah.
Day'Ron Sharpe's the backup big. Like,
do you need Derek Whitehead to pop?
That's the thing is like they haven't drafted well enough ever to really replenish in a way that like when the Wolves gave up half their team, Naz Reid hit. And maybe they find one or two of these guys, but like they had the fortune of a bunch of guys hitting at once. McDaniels, Edwards, Naz Reid. That's why they made the trade in the first place. And I'm looking at the Nets and I'm just like, I think you have to have very high expectations for that next offseason. And the thing that Will has been pointing out to me is like when the Sixers did their cap space plan, Paul George was a free agent. And Paul George is a free agent this offseason that might realistically sign with them. He was like, look at the next class. The best guys like Brandon Ingram. And he's probably going to get traded and extend somewhere this offseason. So like, who are you chasing with that cap space once Ben Simmons expires?
It's going to keep being that way because of the new CBA and the extension. Like, guys don't go to free agency anymore. Good guys don't. Because the money's too good.
Yep.
They just extend and then demand a trade.
And teams will do anything not to lose the asset because then you're losing the salary space. You can't reset it. It's like that's the thing that I fear about the Sixers plans this offseason is that teams are like teams that should be selling like the Clippers and the Suns and stuff.
Yeah.
That should be just trying to get cheaper and make their books a little bit better are not facing reality right now. They're looking at it like we're delusional. We'll just keep throwing money into the money pit and and then the Sixers are going to be like, well, we don't have anyone to trade. We just have this cap space.
It happened last year with the Raptors and the Bulls.
Yeah.
They ruined slop season by fucking being annoying. And the Raptors just lost their fucking pick for that, for being too coy about trading OG Anunoby. How did that work out for you, by the way?
The difference is that Donovan Mitchell's 1 year away from expiring, and that will at least...
Slop. I got slop. Karis LeVert is also out for the game tonight. It's joke.
I mean, it's never been more. I mean, you needed the... As someone said earlier, the Karis LeVert randomizer wheel to fall on Michael Jordan for one night.
Yeah,
Have you seen that tweet? That's on any given night, he can fall on Michael Jordan or Anthony Bennett. Karis LeVert randomizer. He is probably the most high variance player I've ever seen.
Dude, he's killed us so many times. I'm so scared.
Like a star, like 20% of the time, and then the other nights you're just like, yeah, he kind of sucks.
He's I will always respect Karis LeVert because he has fucking cooked us. Like, I don't remember the times when he's bad. I only remember like the pain of just watching him fucking just get to the rim at fucking will. And just cook. I'm high stakes Celtics game tonight. If Celtics lose this one, as Bert's pointed out in the comments, the slander will roll. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to count out the Knicks have been winning with no players, but they also still have Jalen Brunson, and the Cavs hung last game, but I think it's safe to say that one's over. Okay, so the Donovan Mitchell thing, my brain tells me he ends up on the Miami Heat. That's my heart wants that too, because I've talked myself into Jimmy Butler being the one sent to the Sixers in that scenario. My gut, though, is telling me I think that the Nets end up overpaying and getting him. And it just feels like a Nets move. And I heard this a year ago.
I hope not. I don't need Will more upset.
Look, at least Donovan Mitchell's one. Like, Donovan Mitchell would be the best player to play for the Nets in their prime. We talked about this. He would be the best player to play in their Nets in their prime. That's like a legit 1A option since Jason Kidd.
I guess that's true. But then they don't have any moves left.
I agree. I mean, I'm not saying I would do it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying at least Donovan Mitchell's really good. Like,
that's true.
Like, to me, I think trading a bunch of stuff for Dejounte Murray would be potentially worse because, DeJounte's just so flawed. And like,
yeah.
I like Dejounte as a third or fourth guy, but does he want to be that? And like, he probably goes to the Nets and he's like, let's cook. This is my team.
Yeah, right.
And like, if Donovan Mitchell does that, fine. Donovan Mitchell's good enough to do that. He'll get you 40 wins. Dejounte Murray doing that, you're probably ended up with like 33 wins and you're just outside the play-in again. And you have a humiliation thing like where the Rockets get a top 3 pick in this draft, as they've had so many times throughout the course of their history.
Yeah.
So I don't blame Nets fans for not wanting to trade those picks. I definitely understand it. But Donovan Mitchell's largely better than most of the players that they've been rumored to be interested in. And I don't believe in the plan at all, but I at least would get it a little bit.
I'm interested to see if the Lakers can get it done because I doubt they actually
not that bad.
Yeah, their package isn't that bad, and I doubt Cleveland. They still want to be good. You know what I'm saying? So they don't want to trade him in the East. I don't think like they don't want to like make the Heat. They don't want to like resummon the Heat from the ashes. You know what I'm saying? Like so, because I think the Heat. It'd be interesting to see what their like Jimmy like return package is. You know.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just kind of interesting to think about like Jimmy and stuff for Donovan, and they just keep Jimmy. That's kind of interesting.
Stuff for Donovan, keep Jimmy.
Yeah. So it could be like
Cleveland keeps Jimmy.
Yeah, Cleveland keeps Jimmy. It's like Jokic and Jimmy for Donovan Mitchell.
Do they want to pay him though? Because that's why the Sixers are interested.
Oh.
Because he wants to get traded because he wants to get paid. I think that's the only reason that he would ever agree to a trade. He might get traded against his will too, though. That's happened. But upset Jimmy, I'm not sure you really want to test it, but I don't hate that idea. Like I think he can still play the 3.
It's in line with my Jimmy Butler thing. He gets to be the best player on that team.
Yeah, the spacing would be gross. They have to make multiple trades. That's the problem with every Cavs trade is that they have to make multiple trades every time.
Would the spacing be that much more gross though? Like because they're trading Jared. Well, if they're, I'm assuming they're trading Allen.
Well, that's the thing is that you have to make a second trade where you trade your second best player. And Jimmy would obviously be better, but like Jimmy's also 35.
Yeah.
Oof.
It wouldn't be like good long term. But I'm saying if you get like Jokic in a first round pick or something like that too, like. Mm-hmm. You give yourself like a little bit of depth. You can compete and you can develop because Garland and Mobley are not ready yet. Yeah. You need Jimmy would be able to haze them. I'll
just say this much. I know it's sunk cost fallacy, but I would feel pretty sick if I were a Cavs fan to be like, we just had Lauri Markkanen, all these picks.
I forgot they had Lauri Markkanen.
All these picks. And then we turned it into Donovan Mitchell, who's one of the 15 best players in the NBA. And Jimmy Butler's awesome. But Jimmy Butler's 35. And we just turned a decade worth of draft picks and Lauri, who's an all-star, into a better player that's younger. Like it would just be a tough sell if I'm a Cavs fan.
I fucked that up so bad. I was like, awesome trade by the Cavs. They trade Lauri Markkanen at the peak of his value. Like what I thought at the time. I was like, I didn't think he was good. I was like, wow, he had a great season. Good idea to trade him right now.
Ainge go in sicko mode this offseason too. He wants to buy. There's so many teams that want to buy. It's unfortunate that everyone's just buying at the same time.
Look at my I need a coffee cup or alcohol or something. Danny, you want Drew Holiday. Your team, you tried to trade for him last offseason. You need Drew Holiday.
I didn't even think of that. Wow, yeah.
You need Drew Holiday.
What are you getting back? Because he wants to keep Lauri.
I don't know.
Who cares?
I don't want to lose Jaylen Brown for Drew Holiday. Like everyone's sucking off Drew right now. And Drew's a great defense. Like I don't like hate Drew. I just like it's gonna cost us Jaylen at some point, and I'm mad about it preemptively because he's fine. He is not worth $40 million. Like, oh God.
Oh no, you'll just have to make it to another finals and conference finals. 6th time in 8 years, 2nd time in 4 years.
You want to bet? We'll see. Drew, we've had Dr. Jekyll Drew these last 2 games. Mr. Hyde Drew is waiting for the fucking Knicks series to come back. So.
All right, we'll see. So the last piece of slop that I want to talk about here is also involving the Sixers and the Cavs. And this time the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram is going to be potential. I think he's getting traded. The two guys I feel most certain about getting traded and moving teams, I actually have I think there's a lesser chance that Jimmy Butler gets traded than Brandon Ingram and Donovan Mitchell. I think those two are like, to me, they're like locks to get traded because they both have 1 year left on their deals. They both seemingly, their teams need to shake things up, or they want their teams to shake things up in Donovan Mitchell's situation. Mm-hmm. I think that Brandon Ingram is going to be put on the trade block. As we just said, they think that they can get more value for him than Trae Young. I don't know how much about if I believe that at all, but I think that Brandon Ingram is probably going to be, if Jimmy Butler and Paul George don't change teams, will probably be the best wing-sized player. I think Brandon Ingram's just a big guard, but he's a wing-sized player that gets moved this offseason. What destinations do you think make sense for him? Because the teams that have been interested in him are the Sixers, the Cavs, and the Lakers. I feel like the Lakers are just interested in everyone. And the Lakers, and maybe the Jazz. I haven't heard anything about the Jazz, but Danny Ainge always pokes around on these guys. And honestly, if there's one situation that makes sense, that might be one of them, to be honest.
How about the Fort Wayne Mad Ants?
The Fort Wayne Mad Ants?
Yeah. How about them?
Calling up about Brandon Ingram?
Yeah.
Value?
Well, he's down there for his rehab stint after they traded Jaden Ivey and all their other shit for him in their win now move.
So you're saying the Pistons are going to be I think they might have been someone that was linked to him too. Mark Stein reported this.
Oh, well, then that's not true. I don't know. It seems like I have to like get out of Weaver mode. They need to like hire
someone so we know.
Yeah, so we know. Because if they actually get Tim Conley, then I'll I can retire these jokes. Because or maybe not.
I mean, how much would they have to offer Tim Conley? What if they said $15 million a year?
Yeah, something.
Do you realize he has equity in the fucking Timberwolves? Maybe that part of that deal fell through because of the ownership thing.
Might be. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe that's why he wants out.
Yeah, might be. So if that's part of it, if Tim Conley is going to like make the Pistons normal, I'll give it that. I don't know. I just don't like Brandon Ingram. I don't think Brandon Ingram's a winning player, and it's like so hard for me to like. When I don't believe in a guy, it's so hard for me to like step into the shoes of like, okay, let me pretend I'm a dumb GM for a second and think about like who would want that. It doesn't make any sense for the Lakers, I don't think, at all. Like, why would you want the ball out of I mean, I guess D'Angelo Russell just cooked, but like D'Angelo Russell,
he's a better three-point shooter.
He had a better regular season than Brandon Ingram did this year. Yeah. Like, I know he fell apart in the playoffs, but like
Brandon Ingram was also terrible in the playoffs, to be fair. I think he was playing hurt, but you want to hear my pitch on Brandon Ingram on a few teams?
Sure.
The two teams I actually think that are like decent teams where he makes the most sense to me are the Lakers and let's go pervert mode, the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, hear me out. Hold
on. I'm getting I got a friend. He's sick.
He just got off the Tobias Harris contract.
It's a cry for help, though. It's the same one. He stopped the DeJounte Murray. He just stopped the Dejounte Murray cold turkey.
So yeah. What if Dejounte Murray was a wing, though?
Look, Dejounte Murray's a guard, but Brandon Ingram could be anything, even a guard. You know how much we wanted one of those.
We're going back for more Tobias Harris, baby. Oh. Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out on Brandon Ingram for both these teams. The thing that I think is most important for both the Lakers and the Sixers are keeping, whether it's Anthony Davis, LeBron James, or Joel Embiid, keeping those guys fresh, keeping those guys healthy. And while Brandon Ingram definitely is a very flawed player, I don't think he's perfect by any means. I think that a lot of the times when, and look, everyone can tell me that I loved Aaron Gordon in 2020. No, you didn't. You're lying. Okay. You did not love Aaron Gordon in 2020. You didn't love Andrew Wiggins in 2019. Those guys were sold at the bottom of their value. Now, if Brandon Ingram has real trade value, I don't want to give up like 3 first-round picks for him or whatever. If you are making a trade for a player that you view as someone that you're theoretically buying low on, stock around the league is not going to be very high on this player. Now, Brandon Ingram has been probably overtaxed as a number 1 option. I don't know if he can scale and be a 2 or a 3, but I do know that on the Sixers and the Lakers, the most important thing for those teams is keeping their best players fresh and healthy. And the biggest issue I've said over and over again for the Sixers is Joel's conditioning and his health. And if he's not healthy or in shape in the playoffs, you're cooked. Like it doesn't matter. These moves don't matter if that's the case. And getting an extra shot creator like Brandon Ingram, who can take some of the load throughout the regular season, I have my health concerns about him for sure. But if he could take some of the load off of the back of, it's the same reason why I talked myself into Dejounte too. If he could take the load off of Joel, and in the Lakers case, take the load off LeBron and AD throughout the course of a season, it keeps them fresher. It makes it so that they're less likely to get hurt. And also over the course of a game, Joel can lock into what he does best, which is scoring and defense. And he doesn't have to carry quite as much of a load. And then he's not completely gassed at the end of playoff games. And while Maxey is growing into that lead shot creator role, I don't think it would kill them to get another guy if he buys into more of a role off the ball and on defense. Now, maybe he doesn't do that and it's a disaster move. I don't know, but I think I have him 4th on my list of guys that I think that they should target. And I think Paul George, Jimmy Butler, and Dejounte, I would have all above them. Brandon Ingram's 4th, because I just think that everyone looks at what the Nuggets and the Warriors did, and they have to realize that Jokic and Steph are different players, and also they're all-time players at the peak of their powers. It's not to say that Joel can't do that, but Joel's 30 years old now. And you're like, everyone wants to go get a nice role player who fits, and you might have to take a risk at some point. You might just have to push in the chips, take a risk on talent, take a risk on a guy who was a high pick before, take a risk on a guy who was an all-star at one point in his career, and hope that it works out for the best. Because I think that you're starting to run out of years and options to be like, dude, they were 25 when they traded for Aaron Gordon. And I know Steph was later in his career, but they made many great moves in the middle of Steph's prime. And also, those are offensively tilted players that needed defensive help, and they can lift up the offensive talent around them. I think Joel's kind of the opposite. Joel is great because of his two-way impact, but he also lifts up guys defensively. And in order to be the best version of himself on offense, he has to be in good shape, and he has to be able to perform throughout the course of a playoff run. And yes, I'm insane. I'm done. Anyway.
No, I think that's a great thing. I think that the theoretical where Brandon Ingram is your second banana to a often injured high usage center that's, one of the best players in the league. I'd see no way that could backfire. That could only be good.
So if you put Tyrese Maxey and CJ McCollum's spot on the Pelicans, would you like them more?
Yes, that's true. That is true. Okay, fair enough.
And Tyrese being as good as he is off the ball, because the thing is that I think that I don't really view any on-ball guy you get, whether it's Jimmy or Ingram or whoever, as taking away. I think it's maximizing Tyrese Maxey, because Maxey will float in and off the ball. He's a unique player. Like you just might need to build around these guys differently than we think. And I think that everyone just thinks get defensive, athletic role player who can survive on offense, when I actually think it might be the other way around for the Sixers. And I think it's the other way around for the Lakers for sure, because the Lakers never even have a top offense. At least Joel and the Sixers had a top offense in the regular season and playoffs this year. I don't know if there's a world where the Lakers can have a top offense if they don't get a Donovan Mitchell, a Trae Young, a Brandon Ingram. Like, I think they need someone like that in order to do it. So I think just from the Sixers perspective in general, like, I don't know. I think you need to think a little bit outside the box. I think a lot of these moves, I like the Aaron Gordon trade at the time because they gave up nothing for him. But I don't think that anyone was as high as on Aaron Gordon as they claim they were. in 2019. And I don't think anyone was as high on Andrew Wiggins either. Like, I think that there are out of the box moves. There are guys that you can acquire that if the role player stuff isn't on the table, that you need to start taking risks. And I could talk myself into it for sure. I already have.
This is
So
the
when
Murray
he ends up
thing
on the
all
Cavs,
over
I'll be
again.
sick.
Mr. George, I need you to come to Philadelphia because my friend is sick. I don't want to see this happen to him.
Hey, last thing about the Brandon Ingram thing.
Oh, no.
Or Dejounte Murray, either one of them. Jimmy Butler and Paul George are obviously better players than them. They also make like $15 to $20 million more a year than those guys. And you can use the cap space on other role players, whether it's through trade or through free agency, in order to replace those guys, or just run it back with the team and have tradable contracts on the books. So I'm just saying. It's an uphill battle either way. So, all right. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here? Or are you just gonna?
I don't want to encourage this. This is like kind of like I learn at my job when someone is doing things like this as a social worker. I redirect. I don't let them continue down that path. You know,
That's
when
fair.
someone's making alarming statements. So I just want to check out of that and make sure. I'm going to be really excited when we're done with this boring ass part of the NBA year. I fucking hate April, May, June. Fucking sucks. Let's get to the real fucking NBA season.
Let's go.
Slop season, baby. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Draft season's going to be so good. I can't wait until the Sixers trade the 16th overall pick for Dorian Finney-Smith.
Oh, no. What would that hurt you more, or would them just straight up drafting Kyle Filipowski hurt you more?
Oh, Filipowski, 100%.
Okay.
I don't want Filipowski.
I'm kind of, by the way, I'm kind of talking myself into is Filipowski like is he like Kelly Olynyk? Is he like quietly?
Well, that was my thought with him. Yeah. I could talk like if he hit his ceiling. If I could talk myself into Brandon Ingram, I could talk myself into anyone in the Sixers draft, to be honest with you. But I don't think they're going to keep the pick. I think that they're going to trade it.
I'm going to the draft to boo Cody Williams for tricking me by being Jalen Williams' brother. Booing him.
You don't like him?
I'm out. I'm so out on Cody Williams.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm a big Cody Williams guy either. But
I think it's really weird to have. I think if he had a different brother, he would not be in the top 10 of like these mocks and stuff.
New Chris Murray just dropped?
Yes.
I didn't like Chris Murray in the draft. You did. I just want to point that out.
I still don't think he might not be bad.
He's like 25 already. He's 24, I think.
That happens. Guys do that all the time. Desmond Bane was 23, and he had a better rookie year, but by how much? You know,
I think Desmond Bane was 22 as a rookie. He was a young 4-year guy.
Who am I thinking of? Somebody was good as like a 23-year-old that I don't remember. Dalton Connect. Oh yeah, Dalton Connect also sucks, by the way. I don't.
You don't like a little zooted white boy that can jump and shoot?
I like him at a certain point. I like him like after like pick 12 to 14. Yeah. But like people have him at like 8. Yeah. People have him like 8th, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like,
a team will I mean, I think Chuck was right. I think the Pistons will just reach for him at 5.
In the mock, Reed fell to them because the Houstons took Rob, and I think that's possible. Houston's pretty hooper pilled.
Jaden Ivey, you are a Delaware blue coat.
I thought the No Ceilings guys did a good job. They said Sarr first. They said Jokic to the Washington. They said Rob to the Houston, which I could see. They're very hooper pilled. They said Riche to the Spurs, which outside of him being French, he's like a huge boom bust guy, and I think that would be. I think that's a good swing. And then Reed was there for the Pistons at 5, which
Holland fallen to 6.
Where did they have Holland? Charlotte. I don't think they had that.
That's a great spot for him because they're gonna suck. So
I think they mocked Stephen Castle there and then had Klingon at 7.
Stephen Castle.
Yeah. Whatever. Castle guy. I think they had Ron Holland at
the Gothic Castle.
The Gothic Castle. Or no, wait, maybe they had Holland to the Grizzlies, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, don't let that happen. Oh my God. I feel like that would turn out very good for them. But all right, we'll get more into that on the Patreon episode later this week. Thank you for tuning in, guys. This was a fun one. Now we'll tune into some basketball games, I guess.
So fucking. Yeah, we'll watch the. Yeah, ugh, I hate watching basketball.
Gross. So gross.
Boo.
Take care.